Hi, I'm Lockie, and this is my 30-day recap of doing digital art every day until I'm good at digital art. Day 1 was the first drawing I had done on this tablet, and it turned out decent, so I thought, and I didn't know I would get much better than this by the time I moved on past here. Now, day 2, I ended up using a 3D model as sort of a reference, but didn't fully use it to what it was. In this one, I had done because I felt like drawing my OC drinking a Monster can, and I felt like I had to add a background to this to make it look good. But this one turned out pretty decent. I still think it's a pretty good drawing to this day. This was when I really started realizing how I could use these brushes differently than I had been. This was day 3. In day 3, all I had done was this sketch that I, funny enough, haven't completed to this day. I still haven't finished the sketch here. So I'd use that day more as a talking day. Day 4, I had done a drawing for a school project I had. Here was when I discovered the layer border things, which was pretty useful. I ended up eventually stopping using them, but they still helped with this drawing slightly so I could differentiate between Maruk and Stitch. Day 5 was, as you saw there, we're just going to skip past the revenge day and go straight to day 6. Day 6 was my first animation. I'd come up with this concept a long time ago, and I did it anytime I did a flip book check. This one was a finger shooting a beam of light, and to my surprise, it turned out pretty good for my first animation. Day 7 and 8 was a drawing that I had started on day 7 and finished on day 8. It was the same character that was in day 4, and it was split in half, so I'm going to have to place something over it like I did in the short. But today was when I found out how to do grass. Instead of failing miserably with that, I changed it to this. Day 9, I did this animation, which I'm realizing now I don't have a speed paint for. For day 10, I had actually done 2 drawings, and they were 2 drawings of the new character I had done that was gonna, it was a persona, my new persona. While making the short, I had to cut back on the second drawing because it would take too much time. And this is the second drawing, which I found difficulty navigating through how to pose it into this, but eventually it turned out fine, so I'm happy with that. Now, day 10 was also when I learned this new shading technique when I used the dark navy and shaded in. I regret using the yellow there, but it's okay. Day 11 was when I drew the same guy from day 10, sitting at a desk, bored, and tired due to studying. Day 11 was really fun for no reason at all, and that was probably because I found out more about the shading style and that I shouldn't be using yellow for lighting because it looks like shit. This was also when I found out how to do the hair that I do. This was the speed paint for the animation that I had done, which, spoiler alerts, turned out terrible. So, that's fine though. Right here is when you'll see the way I had done the hair from then on. I sort of changed it from then to make it a lot longer and harder to do, but it turned out fine. Day 13 was the other half of that animation there, which again looked terrible. Not this frame here, because day 13 I had only showed one frame of it for some reason. It looks really weird on day 13 because it's only him sitting and there's nothing else around him, just blank white screen sitting down. And if you're curious, this is how the animation turned out. This was a drawing for a personal project of mine, and it kind of looks pretty bad, if I'm gonna be honest with you. But this was when I tested out a new way of drawing hands, so that was kind of cool. Day 14 was another good example of how I draw the hair. And the shading on this one isn't that bad. It might be not the greatest, but it's not that bad. Day 15 and 16 was fan art of the agent Gecko from Valorant. This was pretty fun to do, because it was also really chaotic to do. And I think by far my favorite part was probably coloring everything, because that was an interesting thing to do there. We don't talk about why I drew all this for day 17. We just talk about how I drew it. And how I drew it was bad. Everything about day 17 sucked. You see what I mean? This one sucks and this one sucks too. Day 18 was another personal project part, but this time I was drawing a woman. And the thing is, I don't know how on God's green earth I draw woman. So the anatomy looks pretty crap, but that's fine. I eventually fixed and learned how to draw them. Day 19 and 20 was, I think, to be the best drawing I have done yet. The body looked decent, the colors looked decent, everything looked pretty good for it having been drawn by me. What I really struggled with, though, was the perspective. I did not know how to do that. Day 21 was a reboot of the day 4 drawing. I had to do a new drawing because I got better and I couldn't let the old one be the one I used. I have to place this nothing to see here thing down there because my actual name is right there. And I don't want to leave it there, so for day 22, I drew my D&D character, Afgar the Elf. Last campaign, he got beat up and then convinced the orcs it was racism and then became the leader of the orcs. Don't ask me how it worked, I just rolled really high. The background was a really interesting part because I used the grass one from day 7 and 8, and then I also did some other stuff. I drew two things for day 23 again. This one was the weirdest thing I had ever been asked to draw, and it was a duck holding their hand out in a suit. This was requested by my little brother. And then this was a DTIYS. If you don't know what that means, it means to do this in your style. Day 24 looked kind of bad. And I said that in the video, but I sounded sort of unintelligent. This was my first time trying to do this style of hair, and it turned out pretty well, so I went on to use this for most of my other drawings. Now, the background was so much fun to do for no reason at all. Day 25 was another do this in your style, and if I'm being honest, it doesn't look the greatest. But again, this was only my second time doing this hair, which actually looked pretty well. The shading was what really looked bad, and so did the way the head was shaped. I'd done the sketch on paper, so that's why it just appeared at the beginning. And then for the hand here, I put way too much detail in by accident. Day 26, I was drawing of Zoro from One Piece. This drawing I had done years ago, and I was taking it and putting it into digital art. The hardest part was the lasso tool part. That took an insane amount of time. But overall, I think it looks pretty good compared to what it used to be. Day 27, I made another new character, Urana. And the thing is, I had done the sketch on paper again because, God, I could not for the life of me do it on the app. But I had learned what an add layer was that day, so that was really helpful, and I ended up using that a lot within the next few days. I also found out some new stuff about some of the brushes on Clip Studio. Day 28 was a drawing for a friend, and if I'm being honest, I ended up learning how to draw flesh and bone here. Probably won't be useful very much throughout the rest of my time, but it may serve itself useful, only time will tell. But anyway, here is Seth, the character he wanted me to make for him. And then a friend of mine used this as a base to further enhance it while I was gone. This is my friend's version here. This was Darvin's, a new character I had created on day 29 and hadn't yet had a name for him until day 30. If you haven't already known, absolute music head, if you couldn't tell from this at all. By far the hardest part of day 29 was the walls and the bed. It was kind of difficult to put together. Day 30, I drew Darvin's again in the little Spotify window thing for the cover for my playlist, for my Spotify playlist, because I didn't like the 4 squares of the first 4 songs. I hit a couple Easter eggs to my favorite artists in here as well, so if you see them, let me know. I'll put a link to the playlist in the description if you want to know my taste in music. Little secret here, though, yours is probably better than mine. But that was all I did for the first 30 days, and if you enjoyed this, why? Why did you just spend the last 12 minutes and 55 seconds watching a recap of me drawing? If you did like it though, and you still like it, just drop a sub. But that was all 30 days. Good day, goodbye.